This book has a dual title. The first part of it, The Fountain of St. James Court, obviously refers to our own beloved Louisville, and I very much wanted to make a tribute to that particular part known as St. James Court at the heart of old Louisville. I've lived there since the year 2000, and it is a wonderful place to live, a lot of creativity there, and the focal point, the icon for the whole place, is the wonderful fountain of St. James Court. Some people even who live there don't know what it's a fountain of, but it's a fountain of Venus rising from the sea. She's standing on a clamshell there. And Neptune's, the putti are blowing water onto her, jets of water. And she's riding the waves. According to mythology, she was born from the foam of the ocean, from the foam of the waves. And I always thought that was such an incredibly lovely idea. It was I guess, wanting to tell that was a big impulse to write about the fountain of St. James Court. So this is a kind of homage to Louisville and to the particular part where I live. The person who is the main character of that part of the book is a writer who lives in my house. He's written my books, and guess what? It's not me. So don't make that mistake. Our lives vary in a number of ways. One of them is that in the opening of the book, a good friend of hers has just moved across the street, and she's delighted. But alas, a good friend of mine has not just moved across the street. And so I use the setting, and as convenient, I use what I know about being a writer and give it to my character. But I give as much to Elizabeth Vichy-Lebrun as I do to the character who is the writer. That's my technique for writing, is to try to give whatever I can think and feel to my characters, and I do that with Captain Ahab or with Marie Antoinette or any of them to the extent that I can. I believe in that technique. The other title of this book, of course, is Portrait of the Artist as an Old Woman. And nearly everyone smiles when they hear that subtitle, when they get to the very end of it. Of course, it's a reference to James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. And, of course, it's a little flip-flap, take that, James Joyce, because what am I trying to say just in the title? I'm trying to say, okay, sure, an angry, ambitious young man who's not yet written anything can be the image of who an artist is. But also, an artist might be a woman, might be old instead of young, and we might look at someone who'd actually done quite a bit, as Elizabeth Vichy-Lebrun had done. So I am trying to expand consciousness about the identity of who an artist might be with that particular title. I've traveled a lot with my books, and I'm often asked the question as I travel, where do you get your ideas? It's always an interesting question to me, and there's a very short answer usually, and then there's a longer answer, and then there's the true answer, which just goes on and on and on and on, and finally becomes a book in itself. Because in a certain way, part of what I'm trying to do in this book is to show the interrelationship between our lives and our creative projects. That we choose to do a certain thing because of who we are, or because of what we need in our lives, or what we need to resolve. It is a kind of scriptotherapy. It is to a certain extent. Not that the life entirely governs our artistic projects by any means, because any artist has an aesthetic that comes before serving one's own psychological needs, I think, or it should, or it can. So, but I did want to try to weave these two stories together, these two narratives of these two very creative women, one a writer, a contemporary fictitious person, the other an actual historical painter. I did try to go back and forth in their lives in a way that would a reader would see how the writer had written this particular story and why. it's implicit. It's not really an explicit sort of thing, but you'll get a taste of it from the reading that I'm going to give you. You can see how sometimes the art gets loose and it dominates the mind of its own writer, its own creator. I sometimes say you speak to the work of art and then it speaks back to you. So there is a real interrelatedness here. And as a picture, I wanted the book to be a picture of the creative act to some extent, a picture of the creative act to some extent as well. And to capture that slipperiness and openness of mind that happens, I think, whether you're trying to create something in the way of literature or music or painting or any of the arts. So, all of that by way of introduction. I'm going to read to you now for about 10 minutes. I'll read parts of each of the characters' points of view. The contemporary part is cast into the third-person past tense, and the historic part is cast into the first-person present tense. Now, probably you can guess why I would make that technical choice. I wanted to make the past more immediate, so I do it first-person present. The character who's closer to me, since she lives in my house and sits in my furniture and all of that, I wanted to distance myself. So she's third person and past tense. So all of that was to help me keep my wits about me, I think, as I moved between these two psyches, always realizing that the second psyche was the creation of the first psyche. So it was fun, and I wouldn't say it was challenging. It was fun. Yeah, but I hope it's fun for you as readers. This book, like Ahab's Wife, is told in quite short chapters, and I learned that from Tolstoy and who else? Somebody else. I used to remember. Oh, I know, it was Herman Melville. If you've got a huge story to tell or a complex story to tell, it helps to do it in little gulps of chapters. And then you think, okay, I've made it that far. Now, let me catch my breath and then I'll swim on with this. So,